Okay, it is 2:45 in the morning or night, and here we go with day 14, another 100 press-ups. Let's see how this goes. Oh. Oh, so that's 30. Great. So, you'll be pleased to see that I made it. Got up in time to get these press-ups done before heading to the airport, which is good. I mean, what I wanted to do, and I guess sorry if this comes out as gibberish, I'm going to blame the time, but I was thinking a bit about the thing the fact that I mentioned the challenge of the obstacle, let's call it, of getting up early yesterday, and how much putting in that additional piece of accountability was a good thing or not. And I guess a critic would say it's just a critic might say that stuff doesn't work because you can always just delete it, or who cares, there's no real consequence apart from sort of self-worth, trying to be a person of your word. But another critic on the other end of the spectrum might say it's a little bit of self-flagellation, if that's the right word, is sort of putting yourself, just a little bit of torture really, like why are you using the accountability of other people to just push yourself, and if you don't want to do it, then should you really be doing it? I don't know, I don't really buy into that. I think there are a lot of things in life that you need to do, or you should do, that are good for building accountability. I think it's a really good muscle to have, that accountability, and makes you feel good, right? Like if I hadn't gotten up, and I appreciate this is a relatively small challenge in the grand scheme of things, but it is a little win under my belt, and it's something. It's a great feeling to start the day off in. Essentially you set yourself a target, and by 2:30 in the morning you've hit that target, and that's a great feeling. And so I think there definitely is a lot of power in setting goals, making them publicly known, and then hitting them. One thing that I have really learned in the last few years with regards to goal setting is that I find it much easier and much more tangible to set the input rather than the output of your goal. And that means, for this, it was very simply get up at 2:30, do your press-ups at 2:45, and get going. Whereas, you know, in a say a weight loss challenge, I think, whereas previously I may have said lose 5 kilograms or be able to bench X weight, and so set your output target, I think that's really hard because you're not being clear with yourself what's required. Whereas if you were to just say, turn up to the gym 5 times a week for 10 weeks, it's much more easy to measure yourself against an accountability stick. And for you and your own psyche to understand what's expected of you, if that makes sense. And I think if you translate that to the work environment, it's so much harder, I think, to say, I will get an A, or I will get this grade, or in academia, at the moment for me, it's much easier to measure my input and say, I will put in 4 hours of work on this manuscript, rather than saying, I will get this paper published by X date. So you're measuring the input, which you hope correlates well with the output, but again, it's much easier to hit that goal because you have either hit it or you haven't. Whereas if you set your weight loss target of 5 kilograms and you don't make it, or it takes you longer than expected, you might feel really dejected halfway through. Or similarly, you might be able to kid yourself and think, oh, actually, you know what, I'll just give you a couple more weeks or a couple more months and we'll get there. And in sort of academic stuff, it's very easy to just say, oh, I'll get there, it's just because of X I have to take a more windy route, and actually it delays things by 3 months, but the target's still the same. Whereas, no, if you're measuring an input, you either have done it or you haven't. You either put in those 4 hours a day, or you put in that time that you scheduled and rotated yourself into, or you didn't. And so I think being accountable to your inputs and having clear input related targets is a lot easier to achieve and gives you that sense of success. I guess the question is, does it always correlate with the output? And I guess that comes down to metric selection and making sure you're choosing the right goals so that they're as closely correlated or aligned with the output as possible. Okay, 26, it's up to 81, 19 to go. So, I guess we've been doing this challenge now for 2 weeks. That's great. I think by this time point, I'm feeling like it's quite sticky, and I think it has become a habit, which is good. It's sort of what you want. You want it to feel integrated into your day. It doesn't feel like, it's not something I dread, which was one of my concerns, is that this would become a bit of a burden and interfere with the rest of my day. It's been about 15 minutes. Doesn't take any prep time. Like I said, no real warm up for it. The warm down is fairly non-specific stretches, which I can do whilst I have a coffee or something. So yeah, it's been quite a nice challenge to do. And again, coming back to my inputs and outputs, I haven't really thought about the output. I guess stronger in the chest is a output that will result from the action, which is good. I'm conscious that it's a really asymmetrical movement I'm doing, which will probably need to be balanced out, but I think that will happen. I think the biggest benefit I've seen so far to me from all of this is the accountability, and that I start the day off with a win, and that even when the obstacle is relatively tough like this, like having to get up at a stupid time in the morning, I end up doing it. So it's good to see that, because once you've seen yourself do something or overcome an obstacle, it's much easier to do it again in the future, I find, because you are your own proof that you can do it. So yeah, I think those sort of wins are good and probably feel greater than the physical wins so far. Great, that's 100 done. See you all tomorrow, have a good day.